Rotation curation is a real cool part of Twitter that I really like. And I discovered it a couple of years ago, and I got involved with it, and I'll kind of go through the concept of it now. So it means the concept of rotating the spokesperson on a broad scope social media account. So what that basically looks like is it's one social media account that's owned or used by a lot of different people. And I'll go into some of the examples and stuff. But does that all kind of make sense at the start? Yeah? Okay, cool. So where did it begin? It began with Visit Sweden. So Sweden's tourism board decided that they wanted to take Sweden's main Twitter account, @Sweden, and open it up to the citizens of Sweden to tell the story of Sweden as a country from the people that live there or are Swedish. So this was the CEO of Visit Sweden. Nice little quote. So what that looks like is this. It's a site and a Twitter account where people from all across Sweden and Swedish people are tweeting about their everyday life for 7 days and then passing the keys on to the next person. It's really cool. I have got... Is there sound here, Dale?
Not connected, no.
Okay.
I think the projector has... Yeah, try it.
In Sweden, something unusual is happening. Normally, a country that has a Twitter account has that account run by an official of the government. Not so in Sweden.
In 2011, we became the first country in the world to let go of an official communication channel and hand it over to our citizens. Together with the Swedish Institute and Visit Sweden, we decided to break all branding principles and revolutionize the voice of a country. Every week, someone in Sweden is @Sweden, sole ruler of the world's most democratic Twitter account. For 7 days, he or she shares their everyday life, private opinions, and general reflections. After that, someone else does the same, but differently. This is a simple way to give tips and advice on where to go on your holiday in Sweden. And a great way to interact with people around the world. We can easily share traditional Swedish food, as well as our taste in music or cinema.
Yeah, so you get the idea. It's a bit of an old school video, but... so they started it in 2011, 2012, and like it got picked up massively. They put about, I don't know how much money they put into it for like PR and marketing, but the return on investment was 400,000 or 400 million times the amount that they put in came back in terms of PR value. So it was covered all across the world. It was the first account that had really democratized how they were going to use this account to tell the story of Sweden. And, you know, it was great for tourism, but what has come out of it since has been good debate, kind of commentary on stuff that's happening in Sweden at the time, and Swedish life in general. Its first 25,000 followers had representation from about 125 different countries, so a lot of people were interested in it and seeing what was happening. There it is, @Sweden. And they archive everything on their site, so you've got a list of all of the people that have curated the account over the last 5 or 6 years, as well as information about the curators and people that are curating it now. And the thing that kind of drew me to, it just popped up in my Twitter feed, and the thing that kind of got me into it was the fact that, so I work in social media, and a lot of it is, even from my side, is, you know, like marketing and content is bullshit, and it's like telling the best of everything. And this seemed a little bit more authentic, and the fact that a government organisation or a part of a government had opened up this huge account to people really interested me, and I thought it was just a real good example of how to use Twitter well. So, yeah, as I said, it had some really good success, PR value of $40 million, more than 400 times the investment put in. So who else is doing it? Well, there's a bunch of people that have adopted this approach all across the world, locally in the UK, but also in different places. These are a few. I'm sure there's more. They're actually quite difficult to find because they adopt different things like is yours, people of, they're not all just the natural handle. But the other most notable one is Ireland. That's another quite a big country one that has been taken on for tourism purposes as well. The others have been kind of grown organically, not taken on by an organisation. Ireland's really the only one that's been taken on by a tourism board. And what I also think is interesting is that it's not just tourism or location stuff. It also goes across interest subjects, and also things like mental health and the NHS. I'm going to talk about the NHS a little bit later, because I thought it's a really interesting example of how it's been developed and the influence that they've taken from Sweden. So I was really interested about rotation curation, so I thought I'd try and start my own. So I started Cardiff Is Yours, and I started it back in, I don't know, 2012, I think it was. Do you remember, Dale? I don't remember. 2012. But I did it basically to, I was intrigued about rotation curation as a concept. So I was intrigued about how I could build a community and all of that, but also get different viewpoints from people that were living in the city that I was living in, so Cardiff. And it was really fun. It's been going for about 2 years, but it's dormant at the moment. I've run out of people to do it, but it's grown quite a good following. There's like 4,000 or 5,000 people that follow it and interact with it, and I think about 120 people have taken part, and they've all been interesting. I've learned a lot about Cardiff as a city and different interests and things to do as a result of it, so I found it really useful. Dale actually did it, and this was Dale did this. This was one of his doodles of all of the people that had taken part and held the keys in a 2-year period, and all of his doodles were like caricatures of the stuff that they were talking about through the week, and it was really cool. So yeah, the NHS recently started. I think they started this in about October 2016, so it's been going nearly a year. And they were like one of the first organisations in the UK to really take this on. And I thought it was really interesting because the NHS, the health service in the UK, weekly gets bad representation. It's all negative press. There's no positive stories coming out. So they've really taken a hold of social media. Across the board, the NHS has, but this was kind of the biggest example of that, of them taking hold of Twitter specifically to show positive stories from across the NHS. So it's not just staff working in the NHS, not just doctors, nurses, ambulance and emergency services, but it's also patients, so patients that are going through treatment, mental health, cancer, all of these things. And it's been widely recognised as a really positive thing. And the stories that have come out of this in terms of positive NHS stories, positive healthcare stories, have had a massive impact on the conversations that, well, particularly on Twitter, but the conversations that are happening about the NHS and counteracting the negative activity that's happening in the press in the UK. So I just thought it was a really interesting example. There's a couple of images that I picked out, so patients and staff getting involved. And then really I just wanted to end it on about thinking about rotation curation and how you could get involved. As I said, there's loads of accounts out there that would potentially suit. I don't know if there's developing stuff or like rotate. I don't know. You have to search it, but I'd encourage you to give it a go if you wanted to, or if you were thinking about starting your own around a subject or a topic. Then I'd be happy to talk to you about how that might work with like security and guidelines for people using the account and handing it over on a weekly basis. Or I was maybe thinking that might be something that Hacker Paradise might want to do with their account. A couple of co-working spaces that I know of regularly do that with people that work under the same roof, so it might be interesting to hand it out to people that are on the trips. That was it, really. Cheers.